Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third event in the three-part Life After Graduation series presented by the College of Sciences. My name is Valerie Moses, and I am the chair of the College of Sciences Alumni Chapter. I graduated from UCF in 2013 with my bachelor's degree in advertising and public relations, and again in 2018 with my MBA. So I am a proud double Knight. Go Knights and charge on. So on behalf of the College of Sciences Alumni Board, I just want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. Our board consists of a really dedicated group of alumni volunteers who strive to provide valuable networking opportunities and social events for our fellow Knights. Given the current situation, these experiences have looked a little different for us lately, and they've been hosted virtually, but we're looking forward to the days that we can get together on campus once more. During the pandemic, we understand the struggles that everyone is facing right now, our students and our alumni. And as a board, we wanted to be there to give back during these challenging times. Through our Life After Graduation series, we are able to gather virtually to hear the firsthand insights from incredibly accomplished alumni in a variety of fields. And we really do have a group of rockstar alumni here tonight. So I'm really excited for you to get to meet them tonight. So tonight is the third in our three-part series this fall semester. We hope you enjoy the event and will join us for more events in the spring. I'm going to share the links in just a few moments for our Facebook group and our LinkedIn group for College of Sciences alumni, and I hope you'll join us to stay connected and to learn about other opportunities coming along our way. So before we introduce our esteemed panelists, I want to just go over a few quick housekeeping items. This event is being recorded, and following the initial discussion, we're going to have a Q&A. At this time, we welcome all of you to ask the panelists questions. You can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And if you need technical assistance from Zoom during this event, you can call 1-888-799-9666. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Diana Rodriguez, one of our College of Sciences chapter leaders and the moderator for tonight's event. Diana has been a part of the College of Sciences family since 2016 and graduated in 2018 with her bachelor's degree in psychology. Committed to helping the community, Diana loves to travel and learn about other cultures, which she incorporates into our cooking. So without further ado, let's welcome Diana.
Thank you. So we're not hearing like the applause in the live. Thank you so much, Valerie, for that awesome introduction. I also want to welcome everyone. Thank you for all the students and alumni tuning in for this panel. So before we begin tonight, let's introduce each of tonight's panelists. So starting off, we have Nick Grandchamps, who is a Foreign Service officer who recently completed a 2-year assignment in the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. A 2015 UCF alumnus and a Rangel Fellow, Nick received his master's degree from American University and served as a policy advisor for a member of Congress before joining the U.S. Foreign Service. He is currently preparing for his next assignment to Istanbul, Turkey. Very cool. Welcome, Nick. All right, and then next we have Dr. Janelle Cootes. She graduated from UCF in 2008 with her bachelor's degree in chemistry and in 2013 with her PhD in materials chemistry. She has worked at Kennedy Space Center for just over 10 years and converted to a civil servant with NASA last year. In her current role, she supports efforts for identification and quantification of unknown materials and contaminants from aerospace flight hardware and ground support equipment, and has a special interest in hypergolic fuel research. Very awesome. Welcome, Dr. Cootes. Next up, we have Stephen Hanas, who graduated from UCF in 2015, focused around economics and statistics with the intention of leveraging that into a career in data science. Stephen is a part of business intelligence team at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, the leading educational technology company in the K-12 market space, where he leads a team primarily focused on accelerating the digital revolution of not only his company, but also the public education system. Welcome, Stephen. Last but not least, We have Tristan Reinoso, who graduated from UCF in 2019 with his bachelor's degree in mathematics and is currently a second-year mathematics PhD student at Louisiana State University. His research interests are in mathematical physics and partial differential equations, primarily those with relevance to fluid dynamics. He is a McNair Scholar alumni and is continually devoted to increasing diversity and inclusion in K-12 and secondary education. Welcome, Tristan. Thank you all for being here this evening. All right, so first off, we're gonna dive into our questions for all of you watching. Don't forget, if you have a question of your own that you'd like our panelists to answer, please feel free to type it in the Q&A function. So to kick us off, Nick, why don't you tell us about the progression from your time in college to where you are today? And then we'll hear from others.
Well, thank you, Diana, and hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you to the other panelists for being here with me as well. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion. For me, I started at UCF in 2011, graduated in 2015. When I started at UCF, I thought I was going to go into medicine and study medicine, and decided right away at orientation that that was not my route, and decided to follow the law. And I was a legal studies major and a political science major. Was really focused on law school. And then my senior year, happened to apply to a State Department fellowship, and happened to get the call that I got it. And that led to my career now in the Foreign Service. And so once I graduated from UCF, 2 weeks later, moved to Washington, D.C., started interning on the Hill, had a great time there. And that eventually turned into a policy advisor position while I was in grad school. And while I was in grad school, I got to work overseas at our embassy in the Netherlands for a few months in our public affairs section. And then I graduated from grad school. A few months later, joined the Foreign Service. And the Foreign Service led to my first posting being in Beijing, China, where I was there for 2 years throughout COVID and all of that. So I had a blast doing all that. Got back recently, and now I'm learning Turkish, getting ready to head to Turkey next year.
Wow, that's amazing. How about for others? If you want, let me repeat the question real quick. Oh. Why don't you tell us about the progression from your time in college to where you are today?
I can take this one. So hello, everyone. I'm Steven. Similar to Nick, actually, I originally started at UCF in 2010, graduated 2015, and I too thought I originally wanted to go into medicine. Found out pretty quickly as well that was what I truly wanted to pursue. And I personally found what I believe to be my calling. So graduating UCF, again, I focused primarily on statistics and economics. My first job actually was with the company I'm at now, Houghton Mifflin and Harcourt. And I had started originally as the operations side and doing a lot of sort of that work. And I started to stumble upon data analytics and, how basically businesses today thrive on data, and these decisions that are needing to be made are made with, really reliance on good analytics, actionable dashboards, things that, we never used to have in terms of running some of these big companies, big corporations, or even as small, personal business. One of the coolest, things that I had ever heard as just a metaphor when I started out was from the years of 1950 all the way to 2010. The amount of data that we had generated throughout all of those decades is now generated in a single hour today. So when you really think about that, that is really, there's no true way to run a business in today's modern world, especially with the impacts of COVID, without truly being able to understand what's happening, what are some of the things we should be focusing on, and how do we solve these problems in a real modern, new way. So with my personal experience, it's been really fun for me to start out with getting the skills and tools that I developed at UCF and really being able to grow in my professional career and, trying to basically, like I said, find my calling and actually genuinely enjoy my job day to day. So that's really first start with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Dr. Cootes, what if I hand it off to you?
Sure. So I actually started at UCF back in 2004. So I think I might be the older one here. So I went straight through and got my bachelor's in chemistry. So unlike Stephen and Nick, I had kind of my thought going into undergrad that I wanted to be with chemistry, and I did stick with that. I then decided to go straight through and work on my PhD with no break in between. And I had the opportunity during my first summer in graduate school to be an intern for NASA. And that's really what shaped pretty much my entire future. When I took that internship, it was in a field of science that was not really my specialty. I focused a lot on environmental chemistry, and this was for life sciences, so it was a whole new world to me. But I was lucky enough after that internship to be hired in on the contractor side of the house out at KSC, and I was able to work my PhD while having a full-time job out there. It was also great because my company supported me financially for that. And I pretty much worked up the ranks from being an intern to a low-level beginner scientist up into a senior scientist. The past about 3 years, I actually was a laboratory supervisor for a lab out at KSC that is responsible for certifying all of the commodities that are used out there, whether it's your rocket fuel or a solvent or water. Nothing can be used out there unless we know that it's good. And about a year ago, I was blessed to have the opportunity to actually become a civil servant. And so now I have been officially with NASA for about a year.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And last but not least, Tristan, why don't you tell us a little about your journey from college days all the way to where you are today?
So I'm still relatively new to the PhD program here, so there wasn't a lot of gap in between. But I basically had like the biggest struggle with math majors is trying to decide like what we want to do after our degree. And so I did have a little bit of like that contemplation, like should I go into industry or should I do my PhD first? And I had some friends that kind of did, one, and then friends who did the other. And ultimately, like I came to the conclusion that I want to get everything, like I want to carry this momentum. I want to get through, get my PhD, and then decide whether to go into industry or whether to continue through academia and do a postdoc and a professorship afterwards. And so I'm currently on that track right now in my PhD. I just recently decided that I want to pursue, like, fully committed to the idea of pursuing fluid dynamics. And so I've worked in the past with fluid dynamics with like numerical analysis for both like small scale fluids, so like on the particle level, and then also like large scale fluids, like solar wind level. And so I'm just now cementing myself in that field. And a majority of my work now consists of trying to decide like who I want my advisor to be for the next like 3 years, 4 years, and hopefully getting through that as soon as possible.
Definitely, I hear you. Thank you all for sharing your journey. I just want to ask our next question, tie it in. What advice do you have for recent graduates or to those starting off in their career? Tristan, how about you kick us off there?
One thing I would suggest is talking to as many people as possible and getting to know like your workplace environment very well. This is important for like both networking and also so that you can succeed in your workplace. A lot of times the jobs that we get like later on or like the positions that we move up through come from those personal connections. And the faster you can make those connections, I think the faster you'll progress through. And I would also encourage in the beginning, like creating a work-life balance and sticking to that, just because personally I tend to be a workaholic, so I'm constantly like going. And I know if you don't establish that early on, burnout is something that is experienced like throughout various different fields, and you want to be excited doing what you're doing. You want to be eager to show up to work every day. You don't want to like dread being there, because then that rubs off and like your persona, other people can feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. How about for others?
I'll jump in. I would say be very open-minded when you're looking for your first job opportunity when you're coming out of school. You might have something that you know is your perfect dream job and that's what you want, but especially in today's environment, it can take quite a while to get there. And like I mentioned in the previous question, I took an internship in a field of chemistry that wasn't my specialty, and I not only learned a whole lot from it on a section of chemistry I hadn't gotten to focus on before, but it's gotten to shape and put me in a direction that I'm, thrilled to be in at this point. So even though it's something you might be a little leery of, give it a try, give it a go. And I definitely agree with Tristan, the work-life balance for sure. Make sure you set those goals to not just, be a worker all of the time.
Absolutely.
I'll add a little bit to that. And I think one thing to just be mindful of, whether you're about to enter into your career, or you're about to graduate, just be ready to learn. So many times you're ready to jump in and just start going, and you forget that you're brand new to the mix. Be ready to learn, go in with an open heart and an open mind, to just being ready for whatever gets thrown at you. You're not going to be perfect. Don't try to be perfect, but be ready for when the mistakes do come, that you're able to adapt and change and learn from those mistakes. But I think if you're willing to be flexible, as was just said, and you're willing to come in ready to learn, I think you're gonna do just fine.
I think everyone's made outstanding points here. If I could give anyone a piece of advice starting out, is don't put so much pressure on yourself to make the right choice. I can guarantee you where you end up 10 years from now is nothing that you plan for. You're going to go through your professional life. You're going to find things that interest you, things that you don't like as much, and you're going to pursue those paths. So this first job, this first step in your career path doesn't necessarily, don't put too much pressure on it. Have an open mind, like everyone said, learn. And then, your career path is not linear. That's just not how it's going to work. You're going to go sideways. You're going to find things you like. Just remember that. So this first step, while it's important, just remember it's just a stepping stone to what's coming next. So that's the best advice I could give.
Absolutely. Definitely a lot of great advice. Thank you. We actually have a question from the audience, kind of ties in. Has there been a time where you've had to navigate doubt or uncertainty about what you've wanted to do in your career? And if so, what advice do you have for anyone navigating that same uncertainty? Stephen, want to start us off?
Yeah, so I could start it off. So, honestly, going back into the point I just said is I absolutely, when I graduated, I was in the, oh my goodness, it's real life is coming really quick. And everyone's, congratulating you for graduating, but you're just like, okay, everyone's a lot more excited than I am. I'm a little nervous that we're getting out there and having to do things. And to be honest, the best way that I could just say is learn, like Nick had brought up. One of the greatest analogies I've heard is when you first come out, when you're in school, think of just a piece of paper and you're just drawing dots here and there, right? So those are the little bits of information that you're learning over time. Now, as you keep growing in your career, you're going to start connecting those dots and figuring out how to leverage that knowledge and how to leverage, those sorts of situations to your benefit. So the best thing I can say is you're going to have those doubts. Even if you find a job that you like, you're still going to be like, ooh, I don't know, was this the right one? Did I make the right choice? Just have faith in yourself, have faith in your ability. Learn as much as possible, ask as many questions as possible, and I promise you will find your path. It's been 6 years for me now since I graduated, and if there was one bit of advice I can give myself when I first started out is relax a little bit. It's going to be okay. I promise it's going to work out. It might seem like a daunting task, but we are literally conditioned to learn. That's what we are meant on this earth to do, and with your career path, it's going to do the same thing. You might end up in a job that's completely out of your comfort zone and something, you might not think you're ready for. Just learn, ask questions, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, I'll add on a little bit to that. And I think, especially early on, and just kind of echoing what Tristan said earlier, finding an early work-life balance that works for you is the most important thing that you're going to do. I still am trying to take that advice myself in my own career and what I'm doing. But I have an awesome career. I really love my job. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that there's some times where I'm thinking about what I'm doing next, or if the grass is greener on the other side. And I have a lot of conversations with my friends and my mentors about what that other side looks like, what the grass over there looks like, and that kind of helps me have a sounding board and deciding what brings me joy when it comes to work. What is it? Is this just a job for me? Is this something more? Is it something less? That's a personal decision for everybody. And I just think that you should have an open conversation with yourself about that and what that looks like. But at the end of the day, balance it out. And I think you're going to hear this theme throughout the night, it seems, from all of us, of just be open, be patient with yourself. I think so much pressure gets put on that first job, making sure that first job is perfect, that it's impressive, that it's something that's cool and is going to be a cool business card to have. And yes, those things are great, but make sure it's something that fits you, and make sure it's something that isn't draining you on a day-to-day basis. All of my friends that had that experience, they've switched their job multiple times. And that's not to say that they are less successful in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely not. Almost every single one of my friends that is in their second or third job at this point is right where they want to be and right where they should be at this stage in their life. So be patient, be ready to learn, be open to whatever's coming next.
Absolutely. Anyone else? All right, so let's go to the next attendee question. We're getting some questions regarding the job search. So we have one. A lot of job postings usually say or require 4+ years of experience. So I'm having a hard time as a recent grad figuring what I qualify for or what I should be searching for. So kind of like what do you kind of do when you maybe don't have the work experience, and how to stand out a little bit?
So what I would say with that, just from my experience, so I lead a team of 5 right now. I've been involved in the hiring process many times. I can tell you a lot, especially at bigger companies, a lot of those job listings and job postings are a lot of formalities in them. When they say 4 years experience, they do not mean necessarily you have to have 4 years experience. When you get your foot in the door and you have that interview, what they're looking for is you can talk about how even what you learned in school, you can leverage as that sort of experience. It doesn't mean you necessarily need 4 years of work experience, but there's plenty of things in your life that you can use to, bridge that gap. The interview is so important. When you see and you're applying for jobs, don't take that posting too seriously. There's a lot in it that I guarantee you, even the hiring manager is not really paying too close of attention to. Are there certain things like, do I need a bachelor's degree? Absolutely. Those are, baselines for a lot of these things. But take what that job posting is with a grain of salt. A lot of times you're going to see, skills required, and they list, 20 something odd skills that take years to actually understand. They're really just trying to paint a really broad brush, get in all the candidates they can, and then they start narrowing it down to that interview process. So what I would say to you is apply to whatever is even remotely interesting to you, and that applies in your field, but really focus on your interview and being able to communicate, because that's going to be the most important part to landing any job.
Right. So Stephen, what I hear you saying is that even if you have the right type of experience and maybe not necessarily the amount of years per se, don't let that deter you from still going for that job.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would definitely second what Stephen said. Being a lab supervisor, I definitely have been in the same role as him, being in charge of people, running interviews, going through resumes for job postings that we've had. And absolutely, I agree with the fact that just because we might say 4 years experience, you can leverage work you've done extracurricular work you've done during your university days. If you are in a field like physics or chemistry where you might have done lab research as part of your curriculum, all things like that count towards your experience. And yeah, we really look for, we want to see your character during your interview as well. You know, how do you communicate? What is it like to work with you? Not just what you have written down on paper.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I'm going to take the next question. We have Raven. He asks, any advice on navigating the gig economy and companies increasingly moving from full-time employees to independent contractors? I'll let you guys chew on that one for a little bit.
You know, to me, depending on the position, and sorry, anyone jump in here, but when you refer to that, the industry is really important. Your company is important. So I don't even care, you know, every company is going to be different. If you're looking for, you know, contractor, a lot of the times, even when you're a consultant. So in business intelligence is a perfect example. A lot of the people we hire started out as independent contractors. And the idea behind that is very simple. You know, sometimes those are extended job interviews at the end of the day. So if they do a really good job and they, you know, work really well, mesh with the team, that does not mean that a job that starts off as a gig or a contract, you know, maybe it's a 3-month even temp job, all of those can lead to full-time positions very easily, especially if you get along with your team and you do really good work. I can promise you that take that at a, you know, superficial level. Even if you start off at that, that's okay. You know, wrap some of those under your belt. But absolutely, there's one thing in consulting in general, you have tons of exits. And what that means is there's going to be some company that falls in love with you and wants to keep you around.
How about for others? Tristan, I see some wheels turning.
I'm just thinking, like, to me, just like anything is an opportunity to grow. So if you know, they may be gigs and they may be like independent contracting jobs for like, you know, a few months, if you like a year or two. But at the end of the day, like those are skills that you'll be able to like transition to another job that will come afterwards. Or, you know, if you can it's basically you get your foot in the door. You know, if you perform at that job like really well, like Steven said, you can end up with a full-time position afterwards. I think going in with like positivity and a mindset of like, I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna gain tasks out of this, it's going to be something I can put on my resume. Those are important things to keep in mind when you're going into like any position, a gig or otherwise.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, just to be on top of that, just to give you guys, you know, some practical evidence is one of my best employees right now started out in a 6-month contract. He was a temporary employee and we fell in love with him, did amazing work, and we offered him a full-time job. So understand that that is sometimes just a stepping stone to something bigger.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of echo on all of this, I think, especially in the political science lane and things of that nature, a lot of it isn't so much a contract or gig economy, but more so of these unpaid internships, as we all love in our line of work. And you kind of bounce from unpaid internship to unpaid internship. And I have some friends that graduated and went straight into an unpaid internship. And that unpaid internship actually turned into a full-time position. So I think you're going to hit stumbling blocks along the way. You're going to hit different things along the way that aren't what you expected or aren't what you're looking forward to. And like what they were just saying, just take that as an opportunity to grow. Take your stumbling blocks and turn them into your own stepping stones towards your own success, and find a way to just do your job and do it well. And when you do your job and you do it well, I promise the opportunities come afterwards.
Yeah, great advice. Let's get the next question from the audience. We have Hope. She asks, for those of you who took the road less traveled, going from a bachelor's right into a PhD program, what do you feel prepared you for making that choice and succeeding?
I think it's a really, really tough decision to make. But I think like solidifying the fact that like you basically have to be confident in yourself before you can like make that jump, because it is a big jump to like not to like skip a master's or to not do industry, right, and then transition into a PhD. I think a lot of it is like hyping yourself up, basically like telling yourself, I know these things, I've done these things for years. I wouldn't underestimate getting experience while you're in your undergrad still, and just getting to know as many people as possible, whether it be through networking events like this or at other universities, and just making as many friends as possible, wanting to learn as much as possible, so that when you do apply, you have all of this stuff that you can then put it into your application, and you can basically present yourself in the best way possible.
All right, so I'm gonna hand it off to Dr. Cootes. What is the best way to get involved with internships with big companies such as NASA?
All right, so I will give the spiel on internships for NASA. It's something just to kind of keep your eye open for NASA in particular. They are all offered through usajobs.gov, which is where every civil servant position is posted for across the entire government. They come out just about every semester, and there are a couple of different flavors that you can look for. There are some that are semester long, so you can have either a spring, summer, or fall type of internship where you're only there for one semester. But then there are also what we call pathways internships, and if you are interested in becoming a NASA civil servant, it's a really great foot in the door if you can get a pathways opportunity. Basically, during that time, you have to have a certain amount of credit hours and everything completed, but you then do rotations at your center, so you go back and forth between going to school and having internships, and at the end, when you earn your degree, there's I don't remember the exact percentage conversion rate. I used to hear at least 80%. I'm not sure what it is currently, chance that you will be converted to a full-time civil servant position. So not only do you get work experience while you're going to school, but NASA helps pay for your education, and then you are offered this amazing opportunity to become a civil servant at the end of it. So I started out, I was lucky enough to get a summer internship, so it was a 1 semester long, and though that wasn't that pathways type of road, I still was able to get the connections and then become a contractor out at KSC, which helped me get to where I am now. For other companies, some of the other guys might have some advice for this as well, but check out, job websites. Look for, just go to major companies and see what they have, because internships are always being offered at all major companies, whatever your field is.
Definitely. What about for the gentleman?
And I'd also say, just in terms of internships, at least even my own experience at UCF, some of you on the call might already be aware of this, but if you are not, explore that experiential learning office at UCF. I'm telling you, they do a really good job. They will match you with opportunities. Go to handshake.com, fill out some applications. I'm telling you, there are plenty there. We're looking for 2 more next semester. So, apply, there's nothing stopping you from getting any of that. Just cast your net as wide as possible. It's the best thing I can say.
So this kind of goes for everyone. Would you say that internships are a good way to get your foot in the door and possibly lead to a full-time job?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I mean, it's different with the State Department and the Foreign Service side of things, I will say, because there's a specific test that you have to take and you have to pass the oral assessment and so on and so forth. But that internship experience, the experience that you can then take to take the test and to pass the oral assessment and so on is invaluable and will help you better prepare for that experience. Like I said, it's a year-long process to become a diplomat. Invaluable experience in that sense. And I have multiple friends who have been interns that are now stepping and going through that process right now. I write letters of recommendation for them all the time for prior interns that I've managed, and it's definitely an awesome way for you to decide, even first and foremost, is this something that you want to do? There were plenty of internships that I had where I was like, hey, you know what, that was a great experience. It's not what I want to do. So it can help you rule things out if you have enough time to try to figure that out. But if you have the free time and the ability to do so, cast that net as wide as you can and apply.
So what would you say are the best tips for making connections in the field? Steven, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in your own workspace, attend, believe it or not, conferences. I know a lot of people think of, these generic networking sites, but when you are trying to become an expert in something, so I'm just going to take my own experience, business intelligence. So whether it's we're looking at salesforce.com sorts of things, if we're going to actual BI tools, try to go to those sorts of things, go to these keynote addresses, hear these presenters, network. You'd be surprised how many people are, how many of these events are even free, especially in this COVID-19 world. I mean, there's a lot of these companies that are putting on giant conferences for free. It's all virtual. And, when you're in person, it's a little easier to say, hey, it's Steven, it's nice to meet you. How's it going? And have those sorts of connections. But you'd be surprised how easy it is to really make some of those networks and really explore LinkedIn. I can't even say that enough. A lot of people don't build their LinkedIn brand. It's very, very important. I can't tell you. So at my company, we actually had to say about 2 months ago, due to COVID, we had to lay off about 20% of the workforce. And a lot of these people have got laid off already have new jobs. And the reason being is they were easily able to go on their LinkedIn, reach out to their network and say, hey guys, times were rough. I lost my job, but can anyone help me, do any leads, anything like that? And I'm telling you, it is such a supportive site. If you have not explored it enough, really try to do so and build your brand, because it's very easy to, at that point, make those connections, especially when we're limited at this point with in-person events.
I would like to also hop on and say, like, conferences are probably my favorite thing, just because, like, when you go to a conference, everyone is excited and, like, they're in a mood to talk. They want to be, they want to be engaged. They want to be asked questions. They want to talk about what they do. Like, there is no better place to, like, go and network. And with, like, COVID, everything's online now, so it's a little easier to go to conferences because you don't have to physically travel. A lot of times you pay to go to the conference, but then you just log on to Zoom. And so I would definitely recommend going to conferences and talks as much as possible. I've made, like, so many friends at conferences.
Not to mention all the swag you can get sometimes too. That free gear is always nice. Get a t-shirt or two.
It's the best part.
And I'll just add, outside of the conference lane, don't be afraid to leverage your alumni networks, especially asking your professors. I can't tell you how many students from political science that are still students to this day that are reaching out to me because they've talked to a prior professor that I had and said, oh, you're interested in that? Do you know Nick? You should reach out to him. He'll definitely answer your email. Here's his email. Or, hey, look this guy up on LinkedIn, send him a message. I know he'll reach out to you if you have any questions. I've had multiple students, I think one of them is even on here today, that have done that. And we've had great conversations, and I hope that I've been able to help them navigate their own experiences and their own internships. But don't be afraid to do that. Make your professors your friends and your avenues towards to the alumni that you may not know or have access to. The Office of Prestigious Awards at UCF is amazing. Reach out to them, see what opportunities are there for some of these great internship and fellowship opportunities that exist out there that you might not even know exist. Use that to your advantage as much as you can.
Absolutely. All right. What surprised you about working in a career / joining the workforce? Dr. Cootes, can you answer that one?
Oh, geez. I was just looking at that question thinking, what surprised me? Well, I guess for me, it was when I joined my original, after my internship, and I started working out here on the contractor side. We were very research based, and while you hear a lot when you're in school from your professors about them always going after money, to fund their research. I don't think I really realized how much, even at NASA, that we had to do that for. And as I came up in this world and started moving up from being that kind of entry level, learning the ropes of things, to passing my candidacy and becoming more of a master's level chemist, and then further, the amount of looking for money to support not only myself but my coworkers is probably one of the more surprising things for me in the industry or where I chose to work. So yeah, that would be it.
I think for me personally, in school, you're conditioned so much to rely on yourself, right? So you get an A in math and a C in science, and you're taught in school, you really need to work on science, you need to work on that C. But in the workforce, you're really part of a team. So what surprised me with that is what I found in my experience is sometimes it's the opposite. Focus sometimes on your strengths and become an expert at those strengths. Outsource some of your weaknesses to other team members that may really excel at that sort of thing. And I think, to me, depending on your type of career, me personally, we are a big team environment. We rely on each other, we stand each other up, and we would not be successful unless we can count on one another. And I think one of the things that surprised me is understanding you do not need to know it all. You don't. Really rely on your team, work as a team, and you're going to come up with some outstanding results.
For me, my misperception going in was that the workplace is going to be serious 24/7, 100% of the time, and there's no room for fun. And I'm glad that I was wrong on that. The workplace for me is a source of so much fun and excitement. Almost all my friends are coming from work nowadays, also because of the pandemic. But the workplace is a place that you can have fun, bond with your team, bond with your teammates, get to know one another, and it becomes more of a family dynamic of anything that I ever thought. That's definitely a misperception that I had going in, and I'm glad to know, not just in my career, but in my friends' careers that I've talked to them about, they have the same experience.
And just adding on, because Nick made a great point, really attend and bond with your team, especially in this virtual world now. As an example, with my team in particular, we have virtual happy hours and secret Santas and costume contests. They seem like small little things, but trust me, it matters when people are making executive decisions and trying to figure out how teams are structured. When you are showing up, you're showing your face, you're making those bonds. Trust me, even subliminally, subconsciously, you're making an impact, you're making that impression so much stronger. It may seem trivial, but I'm telling you, when you find yourself in those situations, don't disregard it as, I'm not going to join, I'm not going to do any of that. Really make an effort to bond with your teammates, because not only does it help you get to where you want, but it makes the workday so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely attest that time flies when you're having fun. And sometimes you may start off the day kind of like, oh, I got these 8 hours. And then once you get into the work environment, your coworkers are the ones to lift up your spirit. And then next thing you know, it's time to clock out and head home. So yes, definitely enjoy your time with your team. All right, we got any tips for making a great impression during your first 90 days? So once you get the job, of course, most have the probationary period. How can someone make a great impression, or what are some ways?
To me, and again, I'll let anyone else jump in, but it's one of the things I've noticed, and we've had a few new hires over the years in my team, is when we're on calls and we're doing, project planning or anything like that, speak up a little bit, make your ideas heard. So many people are so tentative and worried. I'm telling you, there is nothing that would impress me more than you going into a conversation. It might not even be the best idea, but showing that you have some sort of confidence in yourself to suggest an idea, to suggest something. Because when you just, stay quiet, fade into the background, that's what you become. You fade into the background. So you might not necessarily know it all. That's okay. Like, honestly, ask questions, but feel some sort of confidence to really work as a team and be heard in some way. That's the best advice. Don't be quiet. Don't be tentative. Really, get out there and try to make yourself heard.
I would definitely second that. That would have been probably my first answer. Yeah, or to ask questions. Obviously a lot of positions right now, you might end up starting out completely virtually, but if you do have the opportunity to start an in-person job, don't just sit at your desk and wait to be handed something. If you don't have an assignment, go, find your supervisor, find someone else that works in your department, shadow them, ask questions, learn all of that. Also, for me, a big thing would be on time. Make sure that you're showing up to that job on time, making sure that they see that you're driven to be there and be excited to be there.
So Dr. Cookie, you say to not be afraid to take initiative, is that correct?
Yes.
And I just add a little bit of make sure you take a second early on, especially in those first 30 days, to just learn the dynamics of your team. Learn the hierarchy, learn the structure, learn how things happen, who you go to ask questions. There's nothing more frustrating than working with somebody for 3 months, and 3 months in, they don't really understand it. They don't really get it. And it's not because you haven't tried to explain it, it's because they haven't really put that effort in. And I know from a lot of people that are hiring managers or people that I look up to as my own mentors, that's what they've always told me, is make sure early on you really make an effort to understand your team and your structure. That doesn't mean you're going to understand everything perfectly, but if you're at least making that effort, it is noticed, it is seen. Your hiring managers understand the effort that you're putting in, just to make sure you understand the dynamics.
Yeah. And if I might add, one thing I would definitely suggest is know your own kind of like flaws or areas that you need to work on, and work with that with your new place of employment. So for example, I tend to, once I get overwhelmed with information, you will tell me something, I'll be like, yeah, I have no idea what you just said 5 minutes later. So anytime I get a new job, I walk around with like a little mini notepad, something to not draw too much attention, and also people kind of see like, oh, wow, you care enough to write it down. And then, you have that as a reference so you don't always have to be asking the same questions, because you have the answers with you on hand. So definitely I recommend, know what are your strengths and what are things you need to work on, and just kind of implement that in your new environment.
And one last thing I'll add, just a quick thought here, is if you really want to stand out, don't just be a task taker. Honestly, you should never say ever in your life, I'm bored, I have nothing to do. Like, that is just ridiculous to me. Find something to do, find something to improve. Maybe you did get a task, but you found a way to do it better and more efficiently. Those are the sorts of things that will really make you stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll echo on that. Absolutely. Something that we do, and I don't know if this is prevalent in other fields as well, but in the Foreign Service and in the State Department, we have something that we call EERs, evaluation reports, that we do annually. And that EER, you have to stand out with one thing that you've really done that year well, or a couple of things that you've really done that year really well, and you have to be able to document it. And what a lot of people do, a lot of mistakes that they make, is they try to do 15, 20, 30 things that year. Have a theme to that year of what you're really focusing on. As Diana was saying, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know the things that you need to work on, but also the things that you can really excel. And as Stephen was saying, step in and offer your skills, change something, make something better, look at a process and say, hey, you know what, that's a little inefficient. Making it just a little bit better goes a long way and helps the whole company out, helps your whole team out in that sense. So that's what I would say.
Definitely. All right, we have another question. How have you all navigated being young and working with professionals who are way older than you?
So I've realized that sometimes you have to be a little more confident and in just the way you speak when you say things. Sometimes people that have been in their field for 30, 40 years they're very confident in themselves because they've been there for 30 years. But sometimes like that fresh perspective is needed. And it doesn't always have to be like, a tense situation. It could be like, here's my idea. I'm not entirely sure if it's correct, but I just want to throw it out there. And, you have to be open to, constructive criticism and feedback and improvements.
And one thing I'd add to that is, everyone has some form of imposter syndrome, right? Where you're either taking on a new job or a new task and you're like, oh man, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing here. Understand when you're working with colleagues and they might have been in their field for 30 plus years, understand they've been in their field 30 plus years. You're not going to know as much as them. And I would be shocked if that was the case. So one of the things I could offer you with that is understand that you are learning. They know where you're at too. Trust me, they're not expecting you to be necessarily on their level either. Just figure out how you can fit in that team and offer that sort of help. And there's times they'll need to lean on you with that fresh perspective. And sometimes that's really needed for certain projects and teams. And then other times, you know, it's just understanding that you guys are a team and don't necessarily compare yourself just because someone is an expert at something. Don't think you need to automatically be an expert at that. It took them years to get to that point.
I would absolutely back that up. I can say about the position I had before I joined NASA. I came in, obviously I felt confident I had my PhD, but someone that was directly under me was a chemist who has been at that lab, running those labs for 35 years. So, you know, I don't know how nervous I was about, you know, being like, oh, could you go do that? You know, because, you know, you just feel so much, you are younger than them and they do know everything. But also then when you had that fresh perspective on an analysis or a process improvement, being able to talk with them, don't be afraid to talk to them, because you know, sometimes, yes, it really is a great idea and you can help further your group in getting work done. And then sometimes you can be like, well, why don't we just do it this way? And they're like, you know what? 20 years ago, this problem came up. So pay attention to them, talk to them as well, because you're going to learn so much. And in my experience, they're never here to say, oh my gosh, that young kid, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. They're here to help you just as much.
And people like to teach. And sorry, Nick, I'll let you jump in there for a second, but understand, like, people don't feel afraid to ask them questions because people actually genuinely want to help and enjoy doing so. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, no, I mean, Stephen, that's exactly what I was going to say. People, especially when they have 30, 40 years of experience, oftentimes they're almost always ready to tell their war stories, to share their experiences, to share what's going on. Eat that up, eat up that experience, turn them into your informal mentor, somebody that you just go to bounce an idea off of. But also recognize that a lot of these people have been out of the classroom for a long time. You're going to bring a very, very fresh, unique perspective, as Dr. Cootes was just saying. Use that. Don't cower away from feeling like you're inadequate. That imposter syndrome is real. It's going to be there. In Beijing, I was the second youngest person in the embassy for the longest time. It was an awkward experience. But what worked to my advantage was having a fresh perspective on a lot of things. And when an idea would pop into my head, I would share it freely, not afraid to have it shot down. And I know a lot of that is personality for me, and just saying, hey, you know what, I'm willing to say things and to take whatever criticism comes my way. So a lot of that is personality, but a lot of it at the same time is just how you grow within the workforce very early on, making sure that you are listening, making sure that you are learning. A lot of those themes that we've been talking about for the last hour. If you go in with that mindset of being willing to learn, being willing to seek out advice and to seek out that mentorship, the age is never going to be an issue for you in the office.
Absolutely. Well, we're kind of getting close to that time. I do want to ask one final question. So if you have any final thoughts, or what is something that you wish you would have known or you wish someone would have told you when you first started out in your current role? Dr. Cootes, why don't you take that one?
For me, something I wish I had known is just it's okay to end up figuring out a couple of years in that this is not the perfect thing for me. One of the reasons I made a move to the position just before I joined NASA was that I realized that I really disliked research. I liked chemistry. I love chemistry, and projects are cool, and you know, you get to learn really great stuff, but I absolutely could not stand having to constantly write proposals. And there's a whole world out there in my field where you don't have to do that. And it's okay to step away from something that you think is this golden standard of your job. It's okay to realize you want to change your path. So not to stress out about it. I think Stephen mentioned it before that, you know, where you see yourself when you're starting out is definitely probably not the road you're going to, you know, be on when you get 10 years, you know, into your career, and to just keep that open mind as you're navigating through it.
And I'd say for me, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And what I mean by that is simply this. So many times, and I've seen it with coworkers, I've seen it with other, you know, teams, where they get so caught on releasing something perfect. It's a dashboard, it's a script, it's some sort of process automation, that they end up pushing back timelines so far that they actually never really deliver anything tangible or actionable. And so to me, honestly, understand MVP, most minimum viable product, and get something out the door that's functional, and you can always improve upon it. You can always make it better and go from there. So to me, one of the craziest things when I first came out was understanding that you do not need something perfect to actually be able to create value in some way, for whether it's a project, a team, a dashboard, a script, anything like that. So that to me would be some advice: is understand that you do not need to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect, but you will be just fine. And just keep learning, keep asking questions, and trust me, your career is going to take you places.
Yeah, one thing that I think I would have liked to know was that starting off, you're not going to know everything, and don't expect to know everything going in. It is a learning process, and you know, a month or two down the road, you still won't know everything. You'll know more than you did before, but it's a constant like growth. And then when you start a new job, the same thing, you're starting over. There are many times where I've thought to myself, like, I should know this, this, and this. And then like a month or two later, I'll find out that like it didn't matter. And like I ended up learning along the way anyway. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I'll just finish up by saying I agree with all those answers. Just three quick things that I wish I knew and learned very early on. Relationships are the most important thing. Build relationships with your team. Trust them early on, and learn how to have them gain your trust at the same time. Be comfortable with mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen early on. Don't let them be crippling for you. Let it be something that you learn from each and every single time, and be ready to have open conversations about them. But then finally, the most important thing, work can be stressful, and have remedies for stress. Know what you're going to do when the workplace stress comes, and what your avenues are going to be to get an escape from that. That is probably the most important thing, I think, there. Make sure that you know what you're going to do, your coping mechanisms, whatever it's going to be, because that early process, those entry-level jobs, it's different. It's a learning experience, and learning is difficult, especially in the workplace when you're no longer just trying to get a good grade on a test. You're trying to keep your job and get a promotion and so on and so forth. All of those experiences create a different type of stress that you don't experience in the classroom. So just know how you're going to handle that. You don't have to handle it perfectly. Don't let perfect be the goal, but let yourself just be willing to learn in every single process, and you'll be all right.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. You truly are rock stars in your field, all of you. So we really appreciate and value the insight and information you gave. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to hand it off to Valerie to wrap us off there.
Thank you all so much. I just wanted to thank all of our panelists, our lovely moderator, and all of you for attending tonight. I hope everyone learned a lot. I know that I did, and I found there were just so many really great insights out there. So if you want to revisit them at any point, we'll be sending out a recording, and this will be on our YouTube page as well. So you can always watch it back and share with friends or anyone that you think might benefit. So I want to thank everybody for participating tonight. I want to thank our attendees for the amazing questions and for staying engaged with us. And, you know, as a reminder, I posted a link to our LinkedIn page as well as our Facebook group. We would love to connect with you when this is, you know, when this semester is over as well, to be able to, you know, connect you with other alumni and other events that our chapter will be putting on in the new year. So we will be sending out a post-event email, not only with the recording of today's event, but we'll also be sending out a survey just about the panel series in general. So be sure to fill that out so we can plan for next semester and we can continue to create some really great programs that are meaningful to our students and to our alumni. Again, if you want to stay connected with us, please feel free to connect on our Facebook page, our Facebook group rather, and our LinkedIn group as well. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, for sharing your evening with us. Thank you to our panelists, our moderator, and all of our attendees. Stay safe, nights, and charge on. This event is now over.